Hey, Future Risers, Azali here from Raised Voices. I just needed to come in before this conversation started to let you know that we are now looking at inclusion as part of personal development. We're hoping that you're going to enjoy this conversation that we're going to be having right now with Faith Clarke. This is a professional woman. She is quite studied, as we like to say. And we're just hoping that you're going to really glean some knowledge from this. This is conversation one, even though it's in two parts, and also that you will share this and you will lean in for the rest of the conversation. So I just want you guys to know where we were going and why are we bringing this topic is because so many people are talking about inclusion. Listen, do me a favor. I need you to share, subscribe, and comment. Please come and support Raised Voices. And now, let's join the conversation.
All right, y'all, welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Faith Clarke. Oh man, it was getting good in the first one. It has gotten good. It reached a peak, and we had to we had to cool off a little bit because it was woo, Faith, you're that girl, okay? You're that person. You're that person that really has our minds turning and really have us interrogating some real long-held beliefs. And I love that. I love that you're here with us. And are you ready to dive into part 2?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Awesome. I had a question, Faith, because we done talked in the first part about emotions in some way. And I think this is a layered conversation, but I wanted to start off when it comes to your work with just navigating the landscape of race in the workplace and the microaggressions and things that may come up for people of different races. I've seen, personally, I've seen interactions between white employees and Black employees that really have spanned different things. One is this relationship, this collaboration between white and Black employees that results in a Black employee really kind of shouldering a lot of work to make sure that the vision of the white employee is successful, but then needing rest in the midst of shouldering a lot of that responsibility. In the midst of the person of color really voicing, hey, this is a time that I need to take off to really recharge and be my best self in the next next phase of this project. There are instances where like white employees feel a little bit like I need to fish for whether or not I am overwhelming this person. Right. And we talked about like just being human centered in the first part, right? There's a way in which asking someone if they are okay can come from a genuine human concern. And there's a way in which the dynamics of race really make that complicated. And now it becomes fishing for the white person to feel okay about themselves to see if they're overwhelming a Black person or not. Like, can you speak with up to that tension in your dealings, or if you ever seen it or experienced?
Yeah, so I mean, first thing I'll just say, yes, I have. And first thing that I'll say is just taking race out of it, that some relationships, a person is going to try to validate the goodness of the relationship by checking if they are okay with you. You know, so sure. I've done that with friends. I'm like, sure. Did I say a thing that caused a thing? And it's, yes, I'm checking on that person, but I'm really checking on, am I in line? Did I, for the context of the relationship that I'm in?
Sure.
And I think that our relationships, we need to know which relationships that belongs in and which, where are the boundaries on that? So if we decide, and I personally believe that we should create workplaces that are like families and that are like communities, but the reality is that that's not the case. in many of the spaces that we occupy. And so this shared responsibility for mutual well-being, though I believe is ideal, when there's a power differential, often what's happening is that power is just trying to make sure it's remaining as power. And that's not a like, they're not bad people. Whoever, a boss or whoever it is not necessarily a bad person, but there is something in it that, yes, they're trying to maintain their place, but they're like, did I do something that will erode my place? And I think particularly with whiteness, there's something I mentioned earlier about the needing to do the right thing. And so a lot of what I've seen in workplaces is that white identifying employees or bosses in this landscape of sensitivity to race and ethnicity are just kind of walking this thin line of, I just want to make sure I didn't do wrong. So we'll just hold that and hold it with the persistent commodification of Black bodies and the fact that especially Black women identifying people don't even know what it means to feel rested. And so there is the persistence of overwork. So you have this, am I doing the right thing? You have this other person who I myself, my boss told me when my first job in corporate, she was like, you don't have to take your lunch break. And I was like, oh, I don't. And then I tried not to. So there is this, my purpose is to show up and show out and do all the things and do the most, right? So when we stop doing that, we break the system. You're giving a different set of feedback into the system that destabilizes. So immediately the relationship is different. That's destabilizing this other person who's also in the system. They don't know how to read it. And so they think, let me just make sure I'm safe. Let me just make sure. So they're doing that work. So understanding that, then you get to decide what position are you holding in that? And so like you're saying, this is not my job. And so continuing to give good feedback into the system is to then maintain like, all good, it's cool, or whatever it is that you're like, keeping your standard like response open, but also keeping your practice of taking rest. Like part of what we need to stop doing is making it a surprise. Like we work on the most and then we're like, okay, I'm taking 3 weeks off. And then they're like, oh, right? So part of this has to be, what's your rhythm of rest anyway?
Yes.
And I'm the kind of person that I don't really have work time start and stop per se. But if I feel like, if my body says I should take rest, I'm going to modify my work right now. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm moving this thing because I don't say what, I have some other priorities. Or if I'm in a work situation, I'm going to like, this thing is going to take me longer than I had thought. I'm going to move this deadline from here to here. How can I help you navigate? In other words, I'm going to act based on my work and rest needs. And I'm going to try to make that the norm so that then we don't have constant shock. Let it be that if you feel like you can't hire me or you can't work with me because I am living out the rhythm of work and rest that my body needs, then let us all know that.
Right? Yeah, but Faith, let me interject here though, but that's so good. Like that's a scarcity thing for most of us as Black people, male or female, or minority groups to attach ourselves to. Because of what you said, we have already created the environment that says, I'm going to outshine, outwork. I'm going to have the best work ethic. You're going to be able to rely on me, build your business on me, build your practice, all of that. And then when we subscribe to what you're saying, which I agree with, let me just state that I agree with what you're saying, because I had to learn that the hard way. Ex-IBMer here, always IBMer, and was one of the youngest Black, definitely immigrant, Black woman in corporate in the building for a long time, and felt like everybody could see me and everything I was fearing was written from the top to the bottom walking through the halls. I just knew they could see it because I was feeling it. So that work-life balance thing, when that was introduced, I was like, what is this foolishness? Wait. That's not what I was taught. Like, I got to work hard because I got to survive.
and I got to stay on top of my game because I can't let my people down. I can't let me down, right? So how do we even start the journey? It's not how we get there, but how do we start the journey of understanding that if we change up the narrative or the rules, that we're not defeating our moral values? We're not becoming them. I'm sorry. It just is what it is, guys.
Yeah, no. So here's the thing though. So also ex-tech, ex-engineer, ex-computer analyst person here. I had a pager that the Bloomberg was paging me at 2 a.m. to say the data feed had come in, and I would make sure my program was running like I was awake at 2 a.m. to know. The idea that we do this work ethic that we have is given to us. Yeah. So I think it's a very humbling position, right? There is, of course, my desire for excellence and all this good stuff, but the work ethic, this whole my value is tied to this kind of way of working. That's not me. It's hard to know that that's not me because it's trauma is in the bones, right? It's inherited, right? And my mother really drilled it in because she wanted me to kind of, do well in school so that I could not have her life and a whole situation. But that's part of the human harming, people harming system that destroys us, except for the few on top, right?
Yeah.
And so like we have to recognize that and then ask, so if I drive an Audi, my car, I call her, she's so bougie. She needs 93 gas. I put in 87 or 88 or whatever, and she's getting all dramatic and can't manage herself. If we can buy stuff, property, cars, whatever, and stop and say, what does this thing need? So that it will take me from here to here, then we can do that for ourselves. So like fundamentally, even though the systems are the way the systems are, I have to be willing as an adult, as a person who owns myself in this world, what does this body, this human need? And what do I need to offer to this body to allow myself to be in the world the way I need to be? And like, if we're not willing to answer that question and these other questions, so what's my moral value? My moral value must align with that answer. If I have morals that are aligned with, then those are somebody else's morals, right? So what does this body need? How does this body, then how do I care for it? How do I keep it aligned? And all of that is the pace. And I think once we've kind of answered that, then as a friend of mine said, we can stop pretending to be the Christmas tree when we're at the side table.
Right.
Right? I'm a side table. So then go be that in the world and set parameters to kind of show up in those ways. So anyway, that's
yeah. I love that because that's identity. I'm going to say rebuilding versus building. And the reason why I'm saying rebuilding, because some of us, we already done built it. Like what you talking about. And now we got deconstruct and rebuild.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to call it what you said for me equals identity rebuilding, because like you said, certain things was given to us and we took that thing and we ran. Like we are not just down the road. We're in another continent by the time we realize, oh, wait a minute, there was a better way to get here. Yeah. I run across continents.
Yeah. Some things are just invisible, right? Until you make them visible. That's the issue that lots of people have. Whatever your power identity is, whether that's a race identity or a neurotypical or whatever, you are blind to the effects of your like the power you have with that identity. It's hard for you to see another perspective. And so the reality is that 80% of the effects that we have in the world are from environment. And so when I find myself habitually doing a thing, getting up at 8 o'clock or whatever the thing is that I'm doing habitually, I could say, this is about me, identity. It's about me, discipline. It's about me, exercise or whatever. But I have to acknowledge that anything that's to do with me is just 20%. The reality is that it's really about the 80%, the world that I live in, if I had moved to Alaska, where the day and night cycles are different, my body would respond differently and I'd get up at a different time. If I went to the Caribbean, where the race situation is different, I would respond differently. It's the environment. So when I even find myself doing things that I think are my work ethic or whatever, I have to interrogate anything that's automatic, 80%. And so what's in the 80%, and do I agree with it? Has to be the question. What's in the 80%? Do I agree with it? Which part do I want to grab onto and say, this part I don't agree with, and I want to reshape my practice so that it fits what I actually believe. And that takes time. I didn't realize that I aligned with misogynistic thought. I didn't realize it was invisible, right? I was just like, oh, I critique my own self, and I thought it was self-care, and I thought it was self-coaching, and I thought, I said, wait, it's misogyny.
Yes.
A minute.
I'm so glad you went there. Before Miss Sound jumps in here, Future Risers lean in. I just want to put a little caution. And I put the caution because I feel it's my responsibility to have some caution. We are talking about personal development. Yes, we're talking about inclusion. It's a part of personal development, right? I don't want you guys hearing Miss Faith saying that as you do the investigation to rebuild or reform your identity, and you're looking at the 80% environment, 20% you, that you're a God unto your own self. Don't play with me. Okay, this one is a warning. See the finger? Don't play with me. We're not saying that. We're talking about some healthy investigation to uproot things that has never served you, and you had a suspicion it didn't even belong there. And Miss Faith will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. While Miss Faith was talking, I felt like a caution come up in my gut to say, just make sure you clarify where you're coming from. Because guys, the journey belongs to you. Where you're going to take it, that's in your hands. That's not in this podcast hands. But where we're coming from is our responsibility here to clarify that. So I just felt a sense of warning just to clarify that, because I never know who's listening. Where you take it, be responsible with it. But where we're coming from, we have to be responsible for what we put out there. It is not God unto your own self. It is not you are the all-knowing of your own self, but you are responsible to figure out some things that have not sat well, have not served well, and to reinvestigate and ask some really pointed, hard questions that doesn't have to do with you beating yourself down. It has with you going in and digging some things up. That's different. Digging some things up and beating you down. Please don't play with me. Those are not, don't interchange those things.
Some of that bigger whole I don't control. Yeah. And so there is a kind of getting off your own high horse.
Yeah.
That must happen. And you must then be guided by whatever you are guided by to figure out how you navigate the things you don't control.
Yeah. I like that.
Part of what happens in the individualized society is that you are God unto yourself. Yeah. You don't recognize that you are you are interconnected. Yeah, and so your actions must impact others, and especially if you have a power identity and you don't recognize that, that is like having a toddler adult-sized toddler in the China shop, right? Because you're not recognizing that your movement has impact every single step. So when we own our 20% and that we're impacted by environment and that we have power and that we use that power to navigate the environment, we can really hold the big picture using the guidance, whatever frameworks we use for our own guidance, with more humility.
It's true. There's something that oh boy, why do you keep unearthing things? I guess it's necessary work. Ms. Sounds, I'm gonna let you jump in here, but I thought of something, confession time for me only. All right. I like to make that clear because I need y'all to understand that we did not have this prior conversation we're having right now. This is not planned. And so if I say something, this is just Azali speaking, right? So just accept what it is. As you were speaking, I was reminded that one of my failures was understanding that there's such power in storytelling that can get you further along in developing a healthy relationship that my ex-husband, who I don't talk about often, but he came from a certain lifestyle that was rough. And one of the ways that we could actually meet and agree was when if I had an issue, I could tell it to him in a storytelling without putting him in the story. We could figure it out. Mm-hmm. But then I was struggling with that cultural me that was like, no, get to the point. Like, that's your guy. Just say straight up. Mm-hmm. And when I did it that way, I failed every time. But then when I came from, because he came from rough. So now you my lady and you gonna deal with me rough. I don't know if I got to do that all the time, right? I want to choose. But whenever I did something in the storytelling, we read a book together and I was like, well, babe, man, as we were reading this, I was identifying with so-and-so and just leaving, him out of it kind of thing. I realized I went further. Why do I make this reference? I make that reference to say that while I say to go back and reinvestigate those things that served you well, I've had to go back and pick up things that served me well that I dropped off. Mm-hmm. Storytelling was one of it. Like, my son needs storytelling. Don't be coming on like rah, 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 rah. Mm. Shut down. Mm. If I come storytelling, then I got him. I got influence, I have acknowledgement, and I have communication. So that's something God had to remind me of. Like, you just dropped a whole bunch of stuff on this personal development. I was like, yo, all of it goes. Yeah. I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, I think I need her. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say, that even in our conversation today, and where we're saying to reinvestigate, reformulate, and revisit, just again, be cautious you don't drop everything to rebuild, because some stuff is really serving you well, and you want to keep those things along the journey so that your rebuilding is not entirely from scratch. So that's what I want to say. Miss Sounds, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, that was really good. I have kind of put in my heart that I think this journey to, wholeness and being finished product, I feel like it's more of an unfinishing than a finishing. And that there's a lot of unraveling that really exposes the truth of who we are more than it is we trying to find who we truly are, right? And so I think some of that is it leads me to really have to unpack not just the trauma, but also some of the cultural practices that are actually benefited people and were communally beneficial, right? And so what I mean in this context is this idea of making sure everybody's okay. In African culture, it's like, because of the communal context of the culture, because of this hierarchy of elders and those that are below the elders and all that kind of stuff, there's this sense that I'm responsible to make sure everybody is in a good state, they're in a good mood. You got what you need. You need a little Fanta, you need a little Coke. You know what I'm saying? You put out the you bring out a napkin and put their water on top of it. You just make sure everything is good, that they feel good, right? And there's nothing wrong with living a life that is of service to making sure someone feels like $1 million, right? But I think that when you translate it to the workplace environment, and you've culturally been attuned to understand that when it comes to authority, you must serve, and in your service, it's because you need to make sure they're okay. I think that's where it becomes a toxic thing to do in the work environment. And so kind of going back to things like needing rest and requesting, as a Black woman, rest and requesting, time off to recharge and rejuvenate, and then kind of being asked, like you said, a probing question to see if I'm safe as an authority, that kind of thing. There's this sense that you need to over-explain so that they feel good. You know what I'm saying? Feel good about themselves. Everybody's good. It's in our culture, when you talk about the elders, I would say that we just transfer the skills of how we do with the elders to white people in the job. White people in power. It's just transferable skill from there. But there's this sense of agency and choice that you learn. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to say all that. I can be okay with just saying all is well and stick to the project at hand or whatever the case. But there is this sense that we need to over-explain ourselves so that everybody's okay.
Can I just comment on that?
Sure.
And it's a wise sense that has kept us alive for generations, right? And so part of the thing is just to acknowledge that, yeah, if we don't keep power happy, we're harmed, right? And so as we shift into creating a different way of being with each other, these old patterns still exist, and they exist because the old patterns still exist in other people. So there is still that withholding of resourcing that's possible because of unhappiness, and to kind of be honest that, oh, that is my wise self. And then how do I care for my wise self that's really just trying to keep me safe, knowing that generations this has been true, while also building some new patterns. Part of what I am learning to do is to not ask permission for rest. So as soon as I start to see that my explaining is about asking permission, right, and then I'm just like, that's okay. And I feel it in my whole body. I'm shaking, but my language is no, and I will get people's back up. I'm like, I'm not doing so-and-so today, or I will be doing so-and-so, or I'm not coming in, or I'm not asking any questions about my rest. And as I find myself explaining, I'm like, I'm also not justifying my thoughts about my rest or anything else. And sidebar, my aunt, when she turned 50, it was a good instruction to me when I turned 50 as well. But when she turned 50, she said, something happened. And so people said to her, hey, Shirley, can we use your house for so-and-so? And she said, she just looked at them and she said, no. And that silence was like, everybody's puzzled because they're waiting for the rest of it. She's like, no. And
that's why I laughed.
Can we just do that? Can we just say no, or yes, or whatever, and just let it be, let the silence be, because I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to justify. If we're in the kind of relationship where we have, according to the terms of our relationship, that information is part of that. Yeah, then cool. So anyway, just
put that silence right there.
Yeah. It's
oh boy,
uncomfortable.
And they could write a whole nother book about you that's off kilter. And so you kind of don't, you feel like, if I don't say anything else and I hang it on, first of all, on Shirley, love you, girl. Right. So don't be like it when I grow up. But however, that silence has them now add more to your story. And you sometimes as a person don't want them to write that story because I'm still trying to live it out. And so you try to like pivot quickly to add something just to make sure you don't write the rest of this chapter real wrong. Go ahead.
Can I add to that too? So it's complete, like both of us kind of question. I want to jump on that. That's so good. Because we talked about the fear, the body's wisdom of keeping you safe because of fear that your livelihood might be at risk if you ruffle feathers with authority. What about like what Azali is saying, the social isolation that we fear as well? So adding that to what she's saying.
Yeah. So what I found out, they're gonna tell the stories anyway. Right. So I've done that, over explained. And the thing I remember the situation so clearly, because I have my sideway path to trick my brain is to build friendship with everybody I work with. Right. And I am fully committed to friendship as much as the other person is able. So in the context of friendship, although this person is in a power position, I'm explaining, and my son, blah, 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 I need this thing for blah, blah, blah. And that person, my reason wasn't a good reason in their in their framework, because they had fully committed to overworking or things that feel like overworking to me. So when I'm saying I am doing it for these reasons, they're like, your reasons aren't good enough. I was further down the hole. I'm giving you reasons because I want you to see that my reasons are good. I give you my reasons, then you judge my reasons. Further not seeing me, further not including me. Like, this is not the relationship for that. And, this person had the wisdom, because we'd been working together for a while and they knew the frameworks that I built relationships on and built teams on. They said, I wish you hadn't told me what your reason was. And I appreciated that honesty, because for them, the reason just messed with their ability to be able to validate it, because it was so foreign from their own internal framework. So I'll just say that we don't have control over people's stories. So the more we can kind of let that be and let that go. Number two, the social isolation. When people have stories, when we feel included by being a caricature of ourselves, we are socially isolated anyway.
Come on. All right.
So like we do all this stuff to try to prevent all these things, and we have it anyway. How many Black executives in this context that we're describing feel alone? They're playing a game. They're just trying to, and they're not. As much as so many of them, especially the Black women, and they get almost to C-suite, or they get to C-suite, and then they're just like, you know what? I'm exhausted. I'm gonna step sideways and just leave. And so I think as we acknowledge the fears, they're such good fears, and they're historical. We want to tend to those fears and tend to the version of us that's honestly like, yeah, but my children and the food though, like the rent and the mortgage though, right? And just be with that, and be with what's the solution for that. Even if there's no solution, what's the tending that I need? What's the care that I need? And then good. Because I also need to be the person. And for me as a mother, the thing that helps me step sideways too is like, what would I tell my kids? Who do I want them to be in the workplace, right? And as I'm busy kind of trying to protect all the things, I'm trying to protect it to protect livelihood for them. When I think about, wait, I don't want you to sacrifice yourself this way. I don't want your soul gouged out, right? Because I don't want your soul gouged out, it is important for me to not have my soul gouged out. Okay, so no need to martyr yourself, Faith. Actually, let's pay attention to creating the world that you want for them. And that might mean some destabilization in your world. But, so.
Okay, I'm getting a bell or a tambourine.
Faith.
Y'all won't let me run? We're going to talk about the topic we were going to go into here. We will talk about the next. She's got to come by like 2 or 3 times. You ain't going to monopolize her time, but we need more time. So she said we're allowed to ask for the things we
yeah, you do. Just tune in.
But when you were speaking, because yes, I'm going to put a spiritual thing on here, and whatever. You, for me, in this moment, whether you meant to or not, validated where it says in the Bible, "Vengeance is mine," says God. Where I don't even, you stole my territory, right? We're talking about in the workplace, wherever. Sometimes we do it to our children in over controlling them and things of that nature. We're stealing from them in some capacity, right? I'm not talking about when you're guiding them. That's different. I'm talking about when you just don't hear nothing they say and I have, that scripture used to annoy me. Because God, did you not see what they did? And did you not see me hold myself back? And do you not see they're going up in life and leveling up? And I'm over here being bothered. When are you going to activate some type of justice? Until I got older. So that bugged me that would mess my sleep up, because they looked like they were having a grand old time. And as I got older, when people, like you're saying, I could not control the narrative or the story, and they did not have any of the facts, but 20% wrote the rest of my story for me, that I was still yet living and that was still untwining itself. When I chose to do nothing, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't see the benefit of trying to go and wrestle them to the ground. I'm gonna be careful here. Some of those people became my friends, and I don't even know how that happened. Because I had a problem with you. You wrote my story and you didn't even know nothing. You were an associate writing the story of a friend. And you just validated that way. You said, I can say I have to rest, and that be the full sentence, chapter, book, bam, author. And I don't have to say anything else. And no matter what they add after that, it's okay, because it's not for me to control that. You just reminded me of that in the Bible. I understand. You might not have meant to, but like, that is a daily application for anybody who reads that scripture and be like, well, how you want me to do this? Sometimes the best work is done when you just leave it. Go do what you were supposed to be doing anyway. Time will show up, and you might just win. Time will show up.
Yeah. The thing is that we're all storytelling machines, and we think that the story that they're telling themselves about us is captured in that moment when they were with us. But just like we are in this everlasting like story of morphing and changing, as are they. And we have no idea. Back to the humility. Like, we have no idea. And the commitment, instead of doubling down on the meaning of this moment, let's double down on the path that we're on and grieve I'm disappointed that you acted this way, for sure, all this thing. But because you intersect with people further along where they've had their own kind of whatever types of moments that shifted things that you had no control over. So their version of your story didn't really control you, because you had the ability to kind of keep moving. And then your own keeping moving, maybe season their story too in some different way. Yes. Like, there's so much that we don't know. Sure. Can we just kind of in humility attend to our own hearts, be loving to each other, be on our journeys, and then kind of just, allow ourselves to be surprised by good as it shows up in people's lives and in the relationships that we get to form on this journey. So
I love that. For the first time, I have a question for the co-host and the guest. Yeah. That's what happened when my brain is on fire. I'm gonna be careful, God, how I ask this, because we got to come back and definitely do a couple of conversations. Miss Sounds, do you agree that speaking to and meeting Miss Faith illustrates a type of conscious elevation that is supported by historical knowledge as to why this lady is totally alive? Like, I'm just telling you, this could be our auntie. I'm just saying. Like, from Africa, by the way, of the Caribbean. Because I just look at her and I feel like there's history, culture, diversity, storytelling, pass it down to the children, make sure they know why we make the flavors of this the way we do, why we speak this way, why we, I mean, it's it's an awareness and an aliveness and alertness that when I look at you, I feel like I don't know enough about my culture to be able to do this rediscovery and investigation that you're talking to us about, and that I gotta go get it. That knowledge.
That's good. I think what you embody, Faith, is the ability that we all have if we allow ourselves to walk through the liminal space between who we used to be or who we learned to be and who we're going to be. And we stop fighting in the storm to that new place. I think that I don't know your story like in depth, but I feel like you've had a lot of suspended in midair moments between what you were taught to be, what you used to be, habits you picked up, heart postures you had. And it's a developed, like it feels like you've walked through this otherness and allowed yourself to feel the tensions of the otherness and the confusion of the otherness, the joys of the otherness, and said, eventually I'm going to become. What? Right. And so that is what we all have ability to do if we stop fighting in the storm from old to new.
Go ahead, Faith, answer. We just out here. We out here now.
Just following no, that's really, so I tell people that's really, yeah, that's very true. I tell people that, first of all, I meet God in a liminal space.
Sure.
So there's a way that and that's whatever you, like for me, I don't want to qualify God as much as the access to the divine, the access to power, the access to something that's bigger and beyond myself. And so I cultivate the space in every client interaction, in every conversation. Like I am, when I find myself pulling back because it feels uncomfortable, because I know that that space is a God space for me. I lean in. And I have to say that the kind of induction into that space, as much as I'm sure I had other experiences, teenager and early adulthood, parenting is the induction into that space. Yeah. Because parenting is the slap up right against, I have no idea. Yeah. None, zero. What are we doing? And then parenting a human that has some kind of developmental difference, and then what that means, and then the cultural pressures, but then also my own wisdom and being willing to navigate. How do I hear what's needed in the face of what everybody's saying is needed? And I've, steadily taken decisions that were countercultural and counter, people who even medical or whatever. So like that as practice, how to listen to myself in the middle of the space. But I do really, really feel that there's so much of the tension we see in society right now, so much of the drawing of the hard lines is about protecting the self that you are afraid will change. I'm just like, we don't actually need to label everything. We actually don't need to put a line down in every single corner. The more we put lines, I know that labeling and categorizing is about giving ourselves power and naming things that are invisible. I also know that putting hard lines around things kind of just locks us into the tiny bit of power we have in that space, and separates us from communal power. So right now, as a woman in my these years, I am almost like, what more change is there? I'm like, please God, in so countercultural for all these years, but I feel more freedom and more pull towards this unearthing and becoming. And there's always the question of, well, will that unearthed becoming person be accepted? There's like every time you step into the liminal space, you have to be willing to say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to shift in the way that that I'm being invited right now.
You're so nurturing to yourself. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just like, I shouldn't be surprised, but man, I just don't have a lot of people like that around me. And when I encounter you nurturing people, I'm in awe. I'm like, is there a perfume? Can you? There's not a spritzer? No.
Sell the essence of it.
I love it. I love it because you are giving yourself space to not wonder. It's not what you're saying. It's actually to search and be very intentional about it. And I salute you, Queen. What can I say? I love that. Like, to witness that, for me, it's just special. I mean, that's how I can put it. Absolutely. I just think y'all need to come up with a spritzer. That's all. Okay, make it easy. For some of us that's still a little too hardcore with certain things. Because even though I don't cuss, drink, smoke, and none of that, I still got some rough edges that I'm working on. So I just need a spritzer. No, Miss Faith said don't speed it up. Right. Did she not just want us not to speed it up, Miss Sound? I'm like, yes. Tomorrow by 12 o'clock, can I be fully whole?
No. We want to be grown. Yeah, no, we have to go through. You're gonna have to go through.
Fully whole. Can I skip the liminal phase?
Look at that. See, I got work to do. Listen, Future Rise, that's why we're talking about personal development, and we talk about it through the lens of how can we then have that extend out to community impact, and how can we do that, making sure that we are not intentionally going out there to hurt anyone, and should we hurt someone along the way, that we have enough courage and capacity to say, look, I am really sorry, that was not my intention. Yeah. And I hope that you can forgive me, or at least hear me say to you, truly, I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. So that's what this is about. I'm going to have Ms. Sound give us the final words here, but I just wanted you guys to understand that when we said our intention in these conversations was to really bring personal development on different levels, we're hoping that you're getting it. Yeah. There has not been a guest like Miss Faith or the person before her or the person before her, because everyone really has something special they're bringing to the table. Yeah. And they should be allowed to dine at the table, even if they got different flavors. Absolutely. And they should be allowed to come at the table and say, hey, I appreciate that you made fish for me, but I don't eat fish. You know, I eat chicken. That's right. It's okay. Yeah. Let's see if we can accommodate them. So first, we're going to have Miss Faith kind of give semi-final words, being here with us. We're hoping she had fun. And then we're going to have Miss Sounds close us out with comment, reflections, or whatever she's going to do. Because my candle's lit. Y'all need 10 seconds to light the candle. Okay. Miss Faith, first of all, thank you. Yes. Wow, we can really talk to you about a lot of things, and not just talk. When I say the word talk, we're not just talking about that physical, but like I have notes, and I'm not a note taker. Miss Sounds would tell you everything is in my head because I remember it and I can just build it like that. I got some work to do. Okay. And that's your fault. No. So I just wanted to thank you heartfelt. There's some things I really need to revisit on the level and the sphere that you have presented today, that I know is headed in that direction, but I didn't really quite know what I was digging up. And some clarity has come to there as to what I need to dig up now. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to say thank you. And I want to pass it to you to just reflections in the thoughts. Like, we just appreciate you. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that y'all just like your own ability to reflect a person back to themselves is just like that's such an essential part of community. And we all are just craving seeing ourselves to even love ourselves better, right? So I just want to thank you for how you've reflected me back to me. And I think as we, maybe to cue up any future conversations, we did a lot of talking about just our own inner excavation. And in my work on inclusion, and I'll just say, for me, inclusion, the state of being included is that state of belong with and to others, and that you can thrive with and to these others. And that belonging, that cultivating that state of belonging in community is about this shared knowing and need fulfillment and safety. So when we start by saying, hey, we want to build community, and we start with what is the community going to do and what are the rules of the community, and without interrogating who we are, without knowing who we are, without allowing that who we are to be known, we're dead in the water for belonging and inclusion and stuff like that. And so when I'm in corporate spaces, I'm saying, yeah, your DEI policy don't really matter. What matters is what happens between two people right here in front of this terminal or over this email, right? Because it is about our knowing ourselves and then knowing the other and then witnessing and then building that bridge.
Yes.
Whether it's storytelling we're using to build a bridge or whatever we're using, that bridge building has to happen from that place of really deep knowing of this and that, and then, okay, us, what's the us that we're creating? And so part of, I guess, what I'm hearing us talk about is how do we build our tools that help us know ourselves really well, so that we know what power we bring to the bridge building, but we also know how to declare ourselves and make ourselves be seen as we are in this work of like recreating the communities that we want that help us thrive.
Oh, Faith. Oh, Faith. I love you. I don't know. Like, that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. I want to end on just a reflection that I get from just the last thing you said and all of the things that we're saying today, which is this inner excavation that's happening because we are to first have a conversation with ourselves before we have it with other people, right? In the space of content creation, there is a lot of this feeling that you must create for others first.
Yeah.
And there's pressure when it comes to creating for others first. Instead, if we would be willing to build a castle by ourselves for a while, like play in the sandcastle, play in the sandbox by ourselves, talk to ourselves, and know that when we're talking to ourselves, we're not talking to nothing. We're talking to pieces of history that exists within us. If we would converse with all parts of ourselves, if we would get clarity on things that have happened in the past, and now as our current self, the nuggets we've found that really add pieces to that old story that has happened, like, I think there wouldn't be the pressure to create for people. It would just radiate from who you are. And so I think you've given a lot of space for us to reflect on. It's essential to talk to ourselves. It's essential to converse with ourselves. And I thank you. I thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Wow. Future Risers, that's it for today. I can't take any more. I'm so full. Oh my gosh. Listen, we appreciate you guys always for staying tuned. Raise Voices, we're doing a lot of different things behind the scenes just to make sure you can see us, you can hear us, and therefore you can be here with us in your own capacity. We appreciate you for just staying in tune with us. We're starting to see a lot more comments on TikTok. TikTok, y'all a boss. So we thank you for the engagement. We ask you to share and subscribe. I know we don't say that often, but we just know that God's going to call a set of people that know what they need to do, and we don't got to keep telling y'all. That's just what it is. We're not following the natural trend or line or strategy or process. We're just doing us and showing up as we see fit. So, but we just do ask you, if you think it can help someone, share it, subscribe, comment, thumbs up, email us, and just let us know what's going on. And stay inspired. Yeah, I'm going to keep telling you that. Stay empowered. Yes, I'm going to keep telling you that. Do your homework. Absolutely. It's a checklist. I'm never going to stop telling you that. I'm going to tell you in as many different ways. And when I learn the different languages from Duolingo, I'm going to do that too. But we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Stay empowered. Have a great day. And let's talk again soon, guys. Bye now.
Bye.